Yeah. Hi everyone. Super excited for this panel. We have a lot of themes we spoke about since the morning. But yeah, this is the one I was probably the most excited about. I have a lot of questions for you guys. But first of all, would love to hear a quick introduction of all of you. Maybe Dorothy, we can start from you.
Hi everyone, I'm Dorothy, head of growth at Outlayer. I'm very excited to be here today. Outlayer is a decentralized protocol that helps projects to build restate rollups and modular rollups. We work very closely with EigenLayer, and we invented the term restate rollup, which is helping projects to decentralize rollups with their sequencer and validator component and leverage the restaking mechanism of Eigen AVS. Happy to share more later. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Ranvir. I'm the co-founder of Appchain. Appchain is the Deepin AVS on EigenLayer. We build a platform for depends to validate and stake using EigenLayer watchtowers. Happy to be here.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Chess. We are GM Network, which is Good Morning Network, and we cooperate with Outlayer and EigenLayer to build AVS for DP and AI. And yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm from Picasso, Composable Foundation. I represent us as the executive director. We're a interoperability hub and a restaking hub on Solana, and we're expanding IBC. Last night we expanded to Ethereum and Cosmos. In a few weeks we'll expand to Cosmos to Solana, our IBC.
I'm Brandon Curtis. I'm the co-founder of Rio Development Co., and we're building Rio Network, which is a protocol for deploying liquid restaking tokens on EigenLayer on Ethereum.
Super cool. Yeah, about me, I'm Mishika, and I do BD and research at DoraHacks. But yeah, maybe, for this panel, we can start about the EigenLayer white paper itself talks a lot about crypto economic security. So, like from the very basics, would love to understand what crypto economic security really is, and why do protocol or dApps building need crypto economic security? Maybe Brandon, we can start from you.
Sure. Anytime you're building a system where you can't entirely constrain every action by every participant in that system using math, then you have to add some economic components. The idea being that if you can create the right economic incentives to act in the way that you need people to act in order for the service to do what it needs to do, then you can still accomplish things that wouldn't be possible otherwise. And so restaking is really taking another look at how you can aggregate and direct this economic security in a way that'll hopefully make things a lot cheaper for services that want to bootstrap using this, instead of going directly to bootstrapping your own network and your own asset from the ground up.
Henry, would also love to know from you, as the concept of staking goes beyond Ethereum and, gets all the ecosystem together. We know, the cost of corruption to be greater than, but what in Solana and Cosmos do you see the crypto economic security going on, and how do dApps leverage it?
So, sorry, the question is, why do we decide to go beyond Ethereum for restaking?
Yeah, moving beyond Ethereum for restaking, and how do dApps on, let's say, Cosmos or Solana leverage the crypto economic security?
Great. So we started the journey of restaking on Solana actually as an AVS ourselves. Similar to EigenLayer with EigenDA, and they built EigenDA in-house, we started building the Solana IBC to connect Cosmos to Solana first. In order for Solana to have a finality to enable the light client verification for IBC, we needed economic security to secure on the Solana side. So when we looked at what economic security to draw from, it didn't make sense to draw from our own Pika token or EigenLayer it makes a lot more sense to draw from Solana. So that's when we basically spoke with the folks from Eigenlayer and realized that this is a real potential for us to leverage restake Sol to secure our own AVS of Solana IBC, and from there we're going to expand that to everyone else, Appchains, through collaboration with Ethos, to rollups, with others like Espresso Systems, to everywhere that wants economic security and wants to reward Solana community members that hold Sol. We believe that it's just a better alignment for us and for a lot of the services that want to involve Solana.
Understood. A very fundamental question that I actually have is, why did you decide to be an AVS? And this is, especially in terms of when you're building a developer-centric product, it could be Alt1 or a witness chain. But yeah, would love to also hear from maybe, starting from Dorothy, that what's the underlying benefit of being an AVS rather than maybe taking the traditional route?
Yeah, every single blockchain needs a consensus layer to a great extent. And normally it's a very painful process to build out your validator program. You need to design your consensus model, you need to recruit validators, and you need to run testnet for a certain period of time, and then you can have a stable mainnet. And you need to monitor the uptime of each validator to make sure they're qualified and the network can run in a stable way. But by leveraging EigenLayer, projects don't have to worry about any of it. They can just trust EigenLayer's mechanism and trust other ETH validators who are already operationally running Ethereum nodes for a long period of time, and we can roughly trust that they know how to run nodes in a proper way. And there are a large amount of ETH assets staked within Ethereum mainnet, which is probably the largest network in the world. You cannot have more assets staked than the Ethereum mainnet. So if you can re-leverage all these stake ETH assets already in the Ethereum network, then you can automatically get a large value network or economic bond. So I think for any new project or startup to bootstrap, they can automatically inherit the security level from EigenLayer, from Ethereum node validators, and it's a lot easier for all these projects to run their networks in a stable and secure way. And on top of that, there are a lot of market hype around EigenLayer ecosystem, so the projects can also get a lot of extra attention from the market rather than just being a standalone network.
Yeah, I would say there are 4 major reasons why we chose EigenLayer. One is easy access to Ethereum operators that Dorothy covered pretty well. The other 3 aspects are cheaper security, getting ETH security from ETH at a low cost, and third is programmable security. So I'll explain a bit in each of these aspects. So first is, getting ETH security is important because our partners would be other protocols. They would like to participate, stake their tokens. But in order to give them assurance that the system would be secure even when any token enters into a death spiral, that's where ETH security becomes very critical. It's one reason. Second is, now that you need ETH security, you need it cheap. And EigenLayer, being a restaking primitive, allows you to get security for very low, at a very low cost, increasing the total amount of value that can be locked with us. And the third option is programmable security, which means that not all applications built on top of us, as being a platform, would require equal amount of security. So if you want an app to require 100 million ETH, well then you can make it programmable. You can say that, okay, the slashable security for this app is under build. And Eigenlayer provides a ready-made framework for us to enable that. So rather than developing all of those contracts from scratch, we just use Eigenlayer contracts.
Yeah, something I'd like to add to that. So there's obviously a need to bring a large amount of capital to bear to provide these economic guarantees. And so there's some really interesting things that restaking allows you to do that will potentially reduce the cost to bring in substantial amounts of security. But something we're also looking at really closely as we go through the 50 or 60 different AVSs that are in the Rio Rolodex at the moment is also AVSs that leverage not only access to the better economics, but also make use of the fact that they do have access to the Ethereum consensus layer and potentially Ethereum state. And so we're really interested as well to see what people build in that area. And we expect that some of those experiments are going to take a bit longer, but it'll be another interesting thing to keep our eye on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this year, for most of the entrepreneurs, they are thinking about like, you should have a token, you should have an app, you should have a chain. So it's Trinity all in one. So that's why I think why this year have so many layer 2 and layer 3s. Like Degen, they built a layer 3 on base. But in the last round or in the past years, there's no like something like Outlayer, Eigenlayer. They don't provide security. It's very hard to aggregate the liquidity and to provide the security. So AVS is like a killer machine. Like really the Apple Store was just built. So from now on, everyone can build their layer 2 and layer 3 by themselves, and there's a very low cost, and even like for gas free for all the users. So that's what makes something different, real different. And so that's why I think this is the chance to build beyond AVS, build something different, something specific like layer 2 and layer 3. Like I'm a game layer 2, game layer 3, I'm a social AVS or something, blah, blah, blah. So there will be like Apple Store. A lot of topics, a lot of items will show up. And I think that's a chance.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, and I'll make a bold statement here. Everything's an app chain. Everything's an app chain, right? And everything's an AVS. From here on, when you can draw security from Ethereum, and when you can draw security from Solana, you can draw security from anywhere, why wouldn't you want to diversify your security and only rely on your own security of your own token staked? Objectively, there's no other reason for you not to do that, right? And you can carve out of your airdrop portion of your total supply and give it to secure your network instead, right? So from here on, thanks to Eigenlayer, and we love their team, and we love that they push restaking forward, we believe that every single project is going to be an AVS, and every single project is going to be an app chain, because we're going to connect them through IBC. So that's what we really think is, all this is going to converge. So we love inventing new terms here. I've been in the industry full time since 2017 as an investor, as a founder, and all these words are going to come together. App chains are AVSs, are roll-ups, and then they're all the same basically.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think a hallmark of just alt chains in general and new services has been, for many years, very high inflation rates that are paid to native stakers in order to bootstrap all the infrastructure that's needed to get things spun up. And so I think that in the last just really in the last year, we've seen a move away from these highly inflationary models to ones that really try to retain the token and do other more interesting things with it and pay out in fees. And so one of the reasons that we're so excited about restaking at Rio is that I think this is going to create a situation where you can build a service, you can speed run this process, you can bootstrap for lower cost the infrastructure that you need to find product market fit, and you can cut right to the part where you're actually economically sustainable and you're paying fees at rates that are reasonable and sustainable.
Super interesting. And I think I absolutely, I'm a fan of what Henry said, that if you can diversify security, why not diversify security? And I think with that, I would also love to come to the risks when it comes to restaking and using Eigenlayer. And I would love to understand it from like a multifold perspective. first is a perspective of restakers. It can be retail folks who restake, or it can be large institutions who put in, a lot of capital into restaking. Second is what is like the risk for an AVS. Third is what are the risks for an operator while they join a AVS. And yeah, I think these are the three things that I'd really love for you to throw light upon maybe. And we can also start from what are the risks for developers when they sort of use an underlying AVS. And Dorothy and Ranvir can throw some light on it.
Sorry, what's the question again?
Yeah, what are the risks for developers when they build on an AVS, use AVS as an underlying technology?
Yeah, I think the first risk is slashing, right? So it's a very novel framework that hasn't been experimented before. So nobody knows what it really will look like until it's mainnet and until it's really implemented. There are a lot of structures or designs that EigenLayer team is proposing in terms of how to handle slashing, how to kind of tiered security risk to protect the whole system. But still, I think there are a lot of uncertainties right now, especially when it comes to having operators to implement things and to run the networks. It adds an extra layer of risk. So there's the protocol level of risk with the design of EigenLayer. There's the slashing risk in terms of how we implement slashing. And then there's operator level risk, where how operators operate, and if say an operator do get slashed, like how do we slash the underlying assets? Is it proportional? Is it tiered? What's the way? Is there deposit? And then there's the smart contract level of risk that's specific to each AVS, each project. Every single project will have their own variation and implementation. So there might be additional risk that's introduced to all these different levels of contracts. And then on top of that, I think there's commercial risk that's rarely mentioned, which is if you render your security model to a different project, say EigenLayer, what does that mean to your token? Would your token become a DeFi yield form that you couldn't resist the fate of having a token going to zero, or can you introduce a different mechanism to protect your own tokenomics to make sure, besides just rendering the security model from EigenLayer, you also have your own ARMs and you can kind of protect your own interests. That's my 2 cents.
Interesting. Maybe Ranvir, you can also throw some lights on when developers decide to use, let's say, witness chain or like any underlying AVS infrastructure. What are the things that they should look out for? What are the things that they should consider?
I think one major thing that developers should understand is the difference between the total stake and the attributable stake. So one risk that we have seen discussed a lot in EigenLayer is like the stake is distributed across multiple AVSs. How do you decide how much stake do you actually have? What happens if other AVS get slashed? Well, in that case, you need to differentiate between the total value stake with you and the attributable stake. So developers should only rely on attributable stake when you are securing vulnerable transactions. These are transactions that leave your system, maybe through conversion to fiat, conversion to some other external system, maybe a bridge or something like that. That's when they have to consider the attributable risk, and they should value the crypto economic security based on the attributable stake that they have.
Interesting. I'd also like to, know or get your perspective on that, there's so much capital in restake deeds, there's so much capital in stake deeds, like both of these layers. Do you also foresee, let's say, insurance products coming up for, or, providing services to large institutions who've deployed like millions and billions in restaked ETHs or any restaked capital? Yeah, Chess, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, I think all the things about it in the end is economic issues. So for now, like I think a lot of layer twos they are using AVS because it's most of this is ETH tokens, right? But let's see the real world, like Thailand government or Vietnam government, they have a lot of like different foreign exchange reserves, not only US dollars. Like they have Singapore dollars, they have Hong Kong dollars as their reserves. So what if once in the end, I think there are a lot of layer 2 or layer 3s are not DeFi chain. So they may be social app or game something. They cannot provide so many, so high ROI to all the validators. So maybe there's the AVS will be something mixed. Still like 90% is ETH tokens. Like let's say 5% is ALT tokens, 5% is GM tokens to provide the security for layer 2 like us and also layer 3 by us. So maybe that's more economic, and also the one validators maybe serve like 50 or 100 layer 2s. The ROI will be more and more low, but will be more and more sustainable and can last for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think these days we're waiting for Eigenlayer to come in mainnet and to see how everything's going to play out, right, with all the restake assets. Picasso is actually a little bit alpha here. We'll be launching the restaking in Solana IBC in 2 weeks in Dubai in Solana Hacker House. So we're probably going to be the first one to go mainnet on the restaking side. At the end of the day, when we look at restaking, there's two components to this. The one component is security, right? Where do you need economic security? Basically, negative incentives for you to not do something, right, and not to be slash, and that's whatever use case that is that uses that, and you should draw from Eigenlayer because Ethereum asset is the strongest in our ecosystem in the crypto, and then Solana is getting there. That's why we're investing our time and energy. The other part, which is not talked as much, is the community, right? So if different communities in crypto have different behaviors, different vision of what the industry is going to be and how they want to participate. So I think that's less talked about because we're now only focused on the security side. But I would say that in the next 6 months or so, after all this is launched, we're going to say, hey, if we can draw from anywhere, how do we draw it? How do we allocate the drawing and rewards in the total token supply? So I think that one of the hardest things that AVS has to figure out is the token economics, and then figure out like where do you need that security and how do you use it. So from there, it can be insurance, it can be any applications that requires that security. But think about not just security, but who do you want to use this, right? The community behind that security is less talked about these days, but it will be a lot more talked about in the next 6 months.
Risk management from the liquid restaking token perspective is already a pretty tall order. So you have to make decisions about what operators you're bringing in. You got to select what AVSs you want to deploy to. You got to decide what the allocations to those AVSs look like. But then you also have to decide in your allocation buckets what the overlap is going to look like. And that overlap is going to potentially impact the quality of service at the level of the security that the restake system is providing to the services that are built on top of it. So it's already a tall order to manage all of those things. And I think that right now we're playing on even harder mode because we have attracted so much capital before anything is live. The things are coming, clearly, like there will be things launching in the coming weeks and months. But just with incentives alone, we've now drawn in many billions of dollars that's all looking for this yield and looking to get into a relatively limited number of opportunities. And so we may find ourselves in a situation where some of these services are generating substantial amounts of revenue that they can pay out to cover both the cost of the infrastructure and the capital that's involved. But because we're just talking about such a large orders of magnitude of capital, you're spreading that revenue over potentially a lot of capital looking for yield.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot. $10 billion is a lot of money. And so we're looking ahead and trying to see what other sorts of challenges will need to be addressed. We talk to a lot of AVSs that tell us that they feel there should be some way to pay different qualities of restate capital, different amounts. Currently, there's really not a mechanism for that. There's also a lot of demand for addressing questions around duration. So you see these deals, some of these services want capital that's going to be committed for a long time and is not going to jump in and farm for a while and then run off to the next thing. And currently, there's not really a mechanism for managing duration either, because it creates complexity for liquid restaking tokens if there is capital that's coming in that becomes illiquid. But if there is, demand for this, then there are probably market mechanisms that can help address that. So we'll just have to wait and see how much more capital comes in and how quickly these services spin up so that we can, start getting yield flowing back to restakers and not just incentives, and then start addressing some of these other questions at the protocol level.
Yeah, I think you had a great point over there, which is choosing what operators you have in your AVS, or rather operator diversity. I'd like to understand this very fundamental question, and it can be like a yes or no question. Does the capital that an operator has, does that equate to the kind of, or the crypto economic security that it can get, or the higher restate capital that an operator has, does that mean higher crypto economic security? Yeah, Ranvir.
Maybe I can start with this. We are in a special position because we are a dip-in AVS, so we like our operators themselves to be decentralized. The more decentralized they are, the better our underlying proof systems become. And that's why we put some weight into the raw crypto economic security and also some additional weight into how geographically diverse they are. So that's a feature that we have within our ecosystem. Plus, if any of the operator is a physical infrastructure network by itself, they are running RPC nodes, they are maybe a RAS provider, that's a value add that, well, if they're already a dip-in, then being an operator is more efficient for them.
Understood. And another perspective that I actually asked this question for is, for example, greater TVL, if greater TVL equates to greater crypto economic security, like it also means that you're giving power to certain set of operators, which is also centralized in nature. So how do you look at the operator diversity, and how does that affect the quality of an AVS? Maybe Dorothy, you can also throw some light on it.
Yeah, that's a very tricky part of the business. I don't think that everyone has figured out yet. There are a lot of under the table dealing or deals that are going on right now between LRT projects, AVSs, and operators. We definitely are seeing a lot of centralization issue, and if you look at the TVL of each LRT project, it's like 1 to 2 billion at least for each LRT, and that's a big TVL. If you think about the yield each AVS can provide for all those TVL, it's gonna be very minimal. So I think the market will correct itself once the mainnet launch happens. Like once we see the real APR, once we see how the dynamics really play out, all these people doing side deals will realize the deals don't make sense because they wouldn't get that yield at all for the amount of capital they committed.
There's clearly a bunch of questions that need to be answered by somebody to support a restake service. And that's around both operator selection, who do you bring in, how do you qualify them, and also these other questions about how the restake capital overlaps with these different services that are being validated. And so at Rio, when we talk to AVSs, many are asking us the question if it's their responsibility or if we think that should be delegated to us. My expectation is that there are probably things you can do at the restaking protocol level to manage some of these things longer term. But in the medium term, LRTs will play a big role in helping to manage the risk that's involved with just building and restaking.
I think eventually it's going to imitate how like a Cosmos app chain works, right? Where you choose your validators and the validators choose you. So it's a relationship, partnership between the two, right? So at first, there's going to be some sort of restrictions for how the relationship will operate between the two. But if you ask the Eigenlayer folks, they will say that they want to be permissionless in the future, right? So what does that mean? That means AVSs can choose which operators that secure them, and operators can choose which AVS they want to secure. So that's all going to be free flowing. When is that going to happen? Eventually, I don't know the timelines. And for us at Picasso, we're going to do a little bit differently. We're probably going to be more flexible because we don't have $10 billion restaked, and for better or worse, right? So we can move faster, a little bit faster on some of those decisions than they can.
Interesting. Chess, maybe you can also add to that.
Yeah, I think there's a peer-to-peer market. So yeah, the market will decide. Yeah.
Interesting. We're also out of time, but I would love to get to the final question off, and I would love all of yours opinion on this, maybe going in the same order. Are AVSs Appchains, yes or a no? With why do you think so? We can start from Brandon.
Yeah, I'll start and say no, just because when I think Appchain, there's some components that I expect to see. I expect to see, shared state and global consensus and all those sorts of things. When we look at the 50 or 60 different teams that are building different sorts of restake services, not all of them have all of those components. It's a really heterogeneous mix. So we think that that the AVS is actually kind of a superset of the app chain, but interested to see what other people think.
Yeah, Henry, probably you already told all AVSs are Appchains or Appchains are AVSs, but anything else?
I think eventually, right? I think in the short term, when I think of Appchains, I think a big component of that is the IBC interoperability, like client verify interoperability. So, some of these AVSs will not be connected with each other, so they wouldn't qualify to be an app chain, let's just say. So, eventually, hopefully, in a world where everything's connected through IBC, which we're working on, and everything can draw security from anywhere, they will be together once for all. But for now, no.
Yeah, I think AVS is much more than Appchain. Appchain is one of the type maybe, and but definitely Appchain will be just like the Web2 app. So in the end, each of the dApp will have a chain, should have a chain, and so they need to use AVS.
Same answer. AVS is much broader. All decentralized and secure app chains will be AVSs. Will be made up of multiple AVSs, but an AVS is way broad.
Interesting. Dorothy.
Yeah, I think AVS and app chains overlap with each other, but they're not the same. AVSs can be any blockchain. They don't have to be app chains. And app chains don't have to be AVSs. They can be any consensus model. They can use any validator program. They don't have to use eigenlayer AVS. So they're not same.
Yeah, thanks a lot for all the views today. I probably have a lot more questions, but we'll take that up sometime else. But again, thank you all of you to answer all the questions very patiently and in detail. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning.
Thank you.
Thank you.